Hello there, rugby fans. Welcome to the end of 2022 and December holidays in South Africa. I'm spending my days at home, in the pool with my daughter, at the shops chasing my daughter, or in the toilet avoiding my daughter. Because we're in the final throes of the year, tradition calls for some kind of awards list or best of whatever thing. Despite the tan, I am extremely online. So I'll tell you about the best rugby adjacent content I consumed this year. Podcasts, YouTube, websites, whatever. These all form part of my favorite rugby content of 2022. Podcasts. I'm dumb. And because I'm dumb, I drive nearly 70 kilometers each direction to work and back almost every day of the week. This means I spend almost 8 hours a week in my car. The upside of this idiocy is that I have a lot of time to listen to podcasts, many of which are concerned mainly with rugby. This is an area of content that is quite saturated, but there are a few shows that I follow regularly. So, in no particular order, here they are. Safety first, you. Do you like talk about gardening? How about DIY talk or occasional tirades against James Haskell or Rassie? Then do I have the rugby podcast for you. Ultra charismatic Lee Calvert and his cranky co-host Josh Gardner produce the weekly Blood and Mud Rugby podcast. They focus mainly on English and Welsh rugby, if at all. No other rugby podcast so regularly forgets it's about rugby, but no other podcast hosts have such a good rapport. They also swear like sailors, so make sure your kids are guided parentally beforehand. So, I've got the English and the Welsh covered, and to cover the Aussies, I've got the Raw Rugby podcast. Professional masochist Brett Mackay, or is it McKay, does a weekly rugby podcast about the trials and tribulations of Australian rugby. He's joined by South African rugby weirdo Harry Jones. Give this pod a weekly listen if you want to hear Brett lament the latest Wallaby injuries, or to try and decipher Harry's latest rant about sleeping with the Queen in Twickenham service tunnels, or equating eggs and rugby to the cut. Their interview game is also next level, with interviews with rugby players, commentators, and even tiny YouTubers. But Rian, you South African meat-brying, pommy-bashing Boersian, what about a local podcast? The four local boys, Tala, Cooks, Jared and Sean, have a rugby chat every week about almost the entire rugby world, when Eskom lets them. Obviously they focus on the box and the Urk more, but you even get some pro-to-dirt chat sometimes, and if Tala and Cooks are up to it, you'll hear about the NBA and the NFL. Their fan interaction is the best in the biz, with lots of Twitter polls that they talk about on the pod. So, crack a beer and enjoy. Those are the rugby pods that get me through the week. I've got potty mouths in Blood and Mud, true professionals in the Raw, and the ultimate rugby fans in Rugby Bits. I also dabble in the Offload Rugby podcast. That's sometimes fun to hear them lament losses, especially Ryan Wilson. His existential crisis about coming to the end of his career is very endearing. Yes! Websites. Oh, hi, welcome to my safe space, where I'm away from my daughter for 2 to 3 minutes a day. Reading rugby websites used to be my main form of consuming rugby content outside of the games themselves. But then the internet became cheap and it's everywhere around me, so I'd rather stream videos or listen to podcasts. And being released from Facebook or website comment sections was like escaping Mordor. I really only have 2 major online spaces I frequent now, and please don't judge me when I tell them to you. Twitter and Reddit. We all know Twitter is a hellscape of trolls, scammers, and literal Nazis, but if you curate who you follow and mute the correct words, it could be a pretty fun place to hang out. I don't follow many people, so my timeline stays pretty quiet, but this year I really dove into rugby Twitter to see what it's all about. Here's but a small sampling of the best folks I've found on there. First up, the Welsh rugby lover with a touch of death, Paul Williams. He's funny, he tweets often, and he keeps it positive. Just hope he never backs your team. Follow Talam Sutu of Rugby Bits to hear about basically all sports, not just rugby. Based on the times of his tweets, he never sleeps, but he's always got something interesting to say. Rucked magazine is good for the latest rugby kits, and he's got a nice thread going of celebrities wearing rugby gear. And I'll throw in Worm Rugby and EK Rugby Analysis for deep dives on tactics. They are basically like the Squidge of Twitter, outside of Squidge who's on Twitter. There are many more, but those are a good start. And if it all sounds a little too scary, just find a bunch of front rowers and follow them. They are as chilled online as they are walking to lineouts. Reddit works a little differently. You don't follow accounts so much as whole themed forums. The main community to find on Reddit and subscribe to is r/rugby union. More active and diverse than most rugby websites and way less toxic than Twitter, r/rugby union is one of my favorite places to go. Somehow, the rugby ethos of smashing your opponent on the field and then respecting them off of it has seeped into this community. Most of the time, you can have very fun chats on there, outside of matched threads. Ooh. As with any community, there are bad apples, but the vast majority of posters are good people. The rugby subreddit is also pretty good at spotting trolls and avoiding them, and clickbait articles are not tolerated. There are still actual rugby websites I do go to, like theraw.com.au. They've managed to avoid turning into a click farm. Their output is often less dry than sites like Supersport or Planet Rugby, which have their place as journalistic sites. The Raw's output is just a little bit more colorful, without descending into comedy like The Onion or into cringe like Rugby Pass. And I guess just bookmark the websites of the tournaments you follow. I've bookmarked the ERG Heineken Champions Cup and the Rugby Championship, all good for results and stats. And that is a sample of some of the reading and listening parts of rugby content. What's left? Yes! Oh, Rappy!
So folks, monthly update for January with
Rugby 22. 22nd. Okay.
Hello and welcome to Forever Rugby on True Sports.
First, you can probably tell from my accent I'm a Kiwi.
Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back
do an absolute fuck all, mate. But so we'll let you go in a second. We'll let you go.
Hey guys.
Hi guys, welcome back. Every year in the Six Nations, I like to have a look at the odds.
It's fucking massive for the language. It's
Regain the Butterfly Cup at Eden Park.
Eden Park.